I do a lot of drift fishing on the kayak. It can be drifting over wrecks or reef for pollock, cod or wrasse, or it could be drifting over shallow rough ground for sea bass, or drifting over clean ground for herring and mackerel, or drifting over clean ground with bait on the bottom for a variety of species. A couple of problems arise when you drift fish from a kayak. The first I find is that when you stop paddling and you just start drifting, the kayak turns broadside, turns sideways to the wind, which is fine when it's calm, but when you've got a bit of a chop hitting you sideways on and you're trying to fish, it can be a bit uncomfortable. The second problem is the speed of the drift. Sometimes it doesn't take much of a wind before you find you're drifting way too quickly, and if it's an offshore wind, you could be drifting out too quickly, or more. Also, if you're drifting over a particular mark, like a reef or a wreck, before you know it, if you're drifting too quick, before you know it, you're way over that mark, and then constantly paddling back up tide, upwind to reset the drift. Now, one of the best purchases I ever made for the kayak, and particularly for drift fishing, is a drift chute, or also known as a drogue, or sometimes called a sea anchor. Now, this has become a great asset. Two reasons really. One, the obvious reason that it slows the drift right down. But the other, I find it absolutely brilliant for positioning the kayak. I can position it using the anchor trolley from the stern or the bow, depending on what type of fishing I'm doing. But basically, it just acts as an underwater parachute, and when you deploy it, put it into the water, it opens up just like a parachute and then slows you down. On this particular drift chute, I've got two places I can hook it onto the anchor trolley. One here, and what that is like a short, leaving just a short bit of rope. And if I clip it on using that particular connection, what happens, that it will drift a little bit quicker. However, if I then connect it up with the full length of the rope, what I would call long, then that actually makes the kayak drift slower. So you can adjust it accordingly. If you find you're drifting a bit too slow, you can shorten the rope and connect it on the shorter connection, and you'll find you'll drift a little bit quicker. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go through a couple of ways that I use the drift chute, depending on what type of drift fishing that I do. First thing I'm going to look at is if I was drifting over shallow rough ground for and casting lures, whether that be plugs or soft plastics for fish like sea bass. Okay, what I would do in that case is actually have the drift chute coming from the stern, and what that will do, that will turn the stern of the kayak into the wind, which means that with me sitting in my kayak facing the bow, I'm going to be facing downwind, which makes it much easier to cast the lures. And what I can do, I can either cast them straight downwind, or what I tend to do is cast them in a semicircle. So I first cast to my side, and then move around in a semicircle around, and then finishing up by casting on the other side. And because I'm facing downwind, it's much easier to cast those lures. All right, so what I've got the drift chute connected to the anchor trolley, and I've got the full length of the rope. I'm just going to throw the drift chute in and then manoeuvre it to the stern of the kayak. What I can do then, if I want to quickly set the chute, I can just use the paddle and just paddle You don't have to do this. You can just leave it, and eventually it'll pick. The drift chute will open up, and it'll set itself. But if you want to set it quicker, the way to do it is to paddle a few strokes, and that will set the drift chute much quicker. Right, so at the moment I've got it coming out of the stern there. Hope you can see that. And what that's done, that is slowly swinging the kayak round now, and basically, so I'm now facing downwind. So when I then want to cast the lures, it's so easy for me then to just cast downwind and then retrieve the plug over the shallow rough ground. Whereas if I didn't have the drift chute, as I said before, the kayak will turn broadside, and you know, it's not so easy. It's much better when I'm actually facing downwind, and I find it an absolute asset when you are drifting and you're casting lures from the kayak. And the next type of fishing, drift fishing, I find the drift chute really useful for is when I'm vertical jigging in deeper water. In this case, I would have the drift chute deployed at the bow, and that will turn the bow of the keep the bow of the kayak facing the wind. And then in effect, what's happening then is I'm drifting backwards. And apart from the fact that it's going to slow the drift right down, what happens is the lines, if they're going to run a little way away, they run away from me. But what I find, it means that because it's slowing me down, I don't need to use so much weight, you know, to keep the lure, to keep more of a vertical jig over the mark I'm fishing. So again, what I do is drift chute. It's got drift chute in, got it connected to the anchor trolley. This time, I'm going to manoeuvre it to the bow, and once again, if you want to, I mean that will set itself, but if you want to set it quickly, you can then just paddle backwards a few strokes, and that will open up the chute very quickly. And you can see it opening up there, coming nicely out the bow. And that you can see where the direction of the breeze is coming from, and that's going to keep my bow, the bow of the kayak, nicely into the breeze, which means that when I then do my vertical jigging, very comfortable for me. And as I say, the line stays nice and vertical, or if it does run away a little bit, it runs away from me, and I'm facing it rather than it sort of running behind me. But apart from that, it's the fact that when I'm drifting, it's keeping me into the wind rather than turning me sideways on. And as I say, if you get a bit of a swell, a bit of a chop, it's not very comfortable when you're trying to fish and the kayak and it's hitting you from the side. And one thing I will say about a drift chute is either have it out of the bow or the stern, what you don't want, it's the same as any anchor system, you don't want it off the side of the kayak, because that could be dangerous. Okay, so that's using it for vertical jigging. When it comes to retrieving the drogue, the drift chute, it's a matter of manoeuvring inside your seat and taking hold of the line. Now, of course, because it's a parachute, you've got a lot of resistance with the water. But what you don't do is just pull it. If you just get it to the side of the kayak, and rather than try and pull it in there, because there's a hell of a lot of weight there, and that could be dangerous. If you just take one of the edges of the chute there and just pull that, and what that does, it just very easily empties all the water, and then the drogue is very easy then just to pull onto the kayak. Okay, so that's using a drift chute or a drogue when you're drift fishing on the kayak. If you do a lot of drift fishing, I absolutely thoroughly recommend that you get one. It really is a great asset to your fishing. So apart from slowing you down, without one you drift way too quickly. It means it helps you to position the kayak and keep either the stern or the bow into the wind, and it's much safer and much more comfortable to fish that way. As I say, have it from the stern when you're casting lures from the kayak over a shallow reef ground. Makes it much easier to cast lures downwind rather than maybe into the wind. And from the bow, when you're vertical jigging, that keeps the bow into the wind where you're drifting backwards. And again, it's much more comfortable. You can maintain a vertical jig much easier. So I hope you found that useful, using a drift chute when you're drift fishing, and thanks for watching.